Hey everybody, Andre here, and the fall semester is almost upon us. That means we're going back to school, or starting school for the very first time. This video is going to talk about 5 tips for composition students, specifically at the undergraduate level, but I suppose these things can carry over to graduate level. This can be broadly applied to other disciplines too, but we're going to talk about composition specifically. So let's go. Tip number 1 for undergraduate composition students is make sure you go to concerts. This has a lot of different important implications. Number 1, it puts you out there, right? It makes you visible, makes you seen. People see that you care about the different groups that are playing. Go to the orchestra concert, go to the wind ensemble concert, go to the choir concerts. Make sure you're always actively involved. Make sure you're seen. Make sure you always talk to the performers afterwards. Even if you didn't like the music that they played, say, hey, good job, nice playing. Find something nice to say. And that goes a long way because they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that you put yourself forward, you made an effort. And down the line, maybe that leads to a commission. Maybe that leads to some kind of a collaboration. And it just opens you up as a human and makes you someone that people want to interact with. So it's really important in that way. And also from a creative perspective, going to hear these concerts, you're going to hear a lot of different kinds of music, some that you maybe already have heard, some that you might not know about, some that you didn't expect to like, some that you expected to like but didn't. You can just absorb lots of different information and you can get a little creative spark, some influence that you can then carry over into your own work. So going to concerts, very important. One of, if not the most important thing that you need to be doing as a student at a music school. Number 2, join a performing ensemble. I once was in a masterclass with a composition professor who will not be named, and she said, you're here to study composition. You should be doing only composition. And I vehemently disagree with that. I think that you should be playing in an ensemble, playing in multiple ensembles if you have time for it, but making sure that you are honing your craft as some kind of player or singer or whatever, because number 1, it just helps your musicianship skills, right? It just builds your own, your skill set in a different way, not just composing. It gets you involved in a group, especially, if you put yourself into an ensemble. Ensembles tend to take care of their own, right? Maybe that gives you an opportunity to write a piece for that said ensemble in the future. It also helps you, with a professional skill. If you need to take a gig somewhere, you have developed those skills and you can then translate that into paying your rent, paying the bills. It's really, really important to have multiple streams of income as a composer because, frankly, it's not a particularly lucrative business, right? So making sure you are honing your ability as some kind of practical musician, whether it is playing the violin or playing piano or singing, whatever, right? Making sure you have that skill set in your toolbox that you can have at your disposal. But from a composition perspective, yeah, if you're in an ensemble, and especially if you're an active participant, you don't just show up and play some notes and then leave. If you're engaging with the community, engaging with the director, it really goes a long way towards getting you those collaborative opportunities for writing a piece for that group. So yeah, join some ensembles and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. That is a big one. That's probably tip number 0. Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't just stick yourself into a room and write music all day long. You're going to get nowhere. You might write the most beautiful music in the world, but if no one knows who you are or what you're about, it'll be for nothing. Tip number 3, going to class is more than just a good grade. This might seem obvious. If you go to school, you should be expected to go to class. But you'd be surprised, take it from the perspective of a professor, that going to class seems to be overrated sometimes. It's more than just going and learning something. Yes, obviously, you're going to try to learn whatever the subject matter of the class is. But maybe you aren't interested in the subject matter of the class. Maybe you're just like, okay, I am required to do this. Okay, this has nothing to do with my major. Why do I care? Why do I need this math class? Why do I need this, history of whatever class? It's more than just the material. It's the act of going that builds discipline. right? Because, if you are a composer, and if you are planning on, every time I sit down to write music, things will happen, just sometimes that is harder than it sounds, right? So if you develop discipline, if you develop this work ethic, I'm going to go to class, even if I don't want to. That's going to translate later on when you have a deadline and you need to write a piece of music and you're like, I don't want to, but I need to. So I'm going to do it because I have built this into my character. I've built this into my, my ability as a, functional person to be able to do this. So going to class, yeah, it's really, really important. And then not only does it build discipline, not only does it hopefully, help you learn something, but your teacher, presumably, if you're at a music school, will have connections, right, to the broader music world. And if you present yourself as someone who really cares, the teacher is much more likely to care as well, right? And that will lead me directly to my number 4 tip, which is develop a strong relationship with your teachers. Not just your private lessons person, right? Not just your private instructor, but your history of music teacher, your music theory teacher, your orchestra director, your, whatever. Just have these strong relationships because you never know. Something might cross somebody's desk and they think, hey, that student right there, this is the perfect person for this opportunity. I'm going to pass this along. And you wouldn't believe how often that happens. Because if you make a strong impression, people remember. And people want to work with, and people want to support the people who make that strong, positive impression. You can make a strong impression in the other direction, and that's not as good, right? But yeah, it's really, really important to develop those strong relationships, especially early on. Because if you're scrambling for, you've gone through multiple years of school, and now you're looking for some, recommendation letters or some references, and you only have a handful of people to draw on, it can be a little daunting. And if your network is small, it's tough. On the flip side of that too, right? If you develop a negative relationship, that's real bad, because as broad as our world seems, the music community is way smaller than you think. Especially if you kind of plant yourself in a certain area, word gets around. People know names. Even if you don't have a personal relationship with somebody, you will know about them. And if you develop a reputation as someone who is unreliable, someone who doesn't come to class, someone who doesn't care, or someone who has a negative attitude, that's just that. It's hard to get out from under that. So yeah, developing those strong relationships. Don't be afraid to go to office hours. So often, speaking from personal experience, I set up these office hours, and just maybe one person drops in every couple of weeks. I remember that person. I develop a great relationship with that person. I wish more people would take advantage of that time. So yeah, maintain great relationships with the faculty. It'll pay dividends later on. And finally, tip number 5 is have a healthy work-life balance. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your studies. You want to make sure that you're writing stuff. You want to make sure that you are practicing. You want to make sure you're getting good grades. But if you're constantly spending, if you're at 8 hours in the practice room and 8 hours in the library, and just you're going to these classes and you do all this stuff and you're just like work. And not to mention, maybe you have a job as well in addition to schooling, right? If you're constantly working, you're going to burn out, you're going to crash, it's going to be a disaster. I don't care how like I'm a machine, I can get this stuff done. Human nature requires a break. You need a break. So if you are one of those people who is really good at structuring things, maintaining a good calendar, actually pencil in a part in your calendar, not just once a week, but multiple times spread out throughout the week for you time. Do your favorite thing. Go for a walk. Do some exercise. Go to the gym. Go for a run. Those are really important. Watch some TV. Do literally nothing, right? Go out with friends. It's really important that you do those things, because otherwise all the work is gonna bring you down. Now, you should do healthy things in your not working time, right? Don't do super destructive things, but maintain that really solid work-life balance, and your mind and your soul is going to be happier for it. So yeah, those are 5 quick tips for success if you are a undergraduate composition student, if you are a graduate composition student, if you are just a student in general at the college level. I think that if you think about these 5 things, things will be okay for you. And just make sure that you take care of yourself and just be the best possible person that you can be, and things will work out really great. So if this was helpful for you, think about liking the video. If you want to subscribe to the channel, I've got lots of composition content, lots of music theory content, lots of just random stuff. So hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, get notified whenever I post things, So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great semester, a great academic year, and a great rest of your day.